Will America boom or will it bust? Big finance is giving off some interesting signals this election after the Fed's historic rate cut fueled a stock market surge that some believe is one massive bubble. JP Morgan Chase longtime CEO Jamie Dimon, who's now on the verge of retirement, recently made some waves in the financial world by singing the praises of Donald Trump.
So you have all these very powerful forces that are going to be affecting us in 24 and 25. So if I was the government, I would be preparing for what I'm going to do about that, assuming things aren't good. And I just also want to point out, I wish the Democrats would think a little more carefully when they talk about MAGA, and if you travel this country, and the country's unbelievable. We took our bus trip this year, and Leslie Picker was on Spokane and Boise and Bozeman. People are growing. They're hungry to grow. They're innovating. It's everywhere. It's not just Silicon Valley. So we've got this great hand. But when people say MAGA, they're actually looking at people voting for Trump, and they think they're voting, and they're basically scapegoating them, that you are like him. But I don't think they're voting for Trump because of his family values. And if you look, just take a step back, be honest. He was kind of right about NATO, kind of right about immigration. Mm-hmm. He grew the economy quite well.
China virus.
Tax reform worked. Mm-hmm. He was right about some of China. I don't like what he did.
No, I said China virus.
Yeah, I understand. He may have been right. And I don't like how he said things about Mexico. But he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues.
Kamala Harris, for her part, bragged about her economic plan, telling Oprah that Moody's, Goldman Sachs, and Wharton Business School, which is Trump's alma mater, have all backed her big ideas to get the economy moving again. But Goldman threw cold water on that boast, and Wharton fired back at the bold lie. They said, we did not find a positive impact on the economy from her plan in any future year. And the Trump plan does not increase GDP for a few years, but it does lower it by the end of the 10-year budget window. So joining us now to see where big finance stands in the 2024 election is Marty Bent, managing partner at 1031. So Marty, thanks so much for joining us. And who would you say big finance is backing at this election?
I think it's pretty clear it's got to be Donald Trump. If you're looking for some certainty in terms of economic policy in the next administration, like you mentioned, it doesn't seem like Kamala has a policy at all. She's put some thoughts out there, but they're nothing more than empty thoughts. There's no hardcore policy. Trump has come out and explicitly said he wants to re-engage the economy and really get the energy sector going so that it can help bring down prices. And then he has a very ambitious tax plan, increasing tariffs, lowering the income tax, and he's definitely going to have a needle to thread there, but he's been posturing pretty well, particularly today, saying that he's going to have Elon come in and cut costs on the fiscal side, which is going to be completely necessary if he hopes to actually implement tariffs and lower income tax, because those alone would have an inflationary effect on the economy, and he's got to couple that with spending cuts across the board within the federal government. And so I think anybody who cares about the future of the American economy and wants some certainty around prospects for growth is cheering for Trump right now, because Kamala simply hasn't put a sensible economic policy in front of the public.
So, Marty, what's fascinating about this is that, I think no doubt you're right. Anyone who cares about those things wants Trump. But we have a little problem in the last, couple decades, which is that big finance and big money in general is not allowed to say that they support anyone other than sort of the Borg, and that's the Democrats now. And they're the face of the sort of uniparty. So it's an interesting predicament, and I'm curious what you think about it, where you do have some figures over the last year, like Jamie Dimon, like Steven Schwartzman. A few people have come out and said some kind of nice things about Trump, right, in this very, the way that Dimon did it was representative of how they talk, but they're actually coming out and saying that. Then you have some tech people who are just unabashed, like, we're for Trump now. So it's an interesting moment, but for finance, it's a little bit more complicated, right? What do you think is going on there? Because you certainly have a lot of powerful forces there who will never come out and say that they're for Donald Trump.
Well, I think Jamie Dimon's comments, particularly, and big finance more broadly, I think they've got a lot of egg on their face from the last decade, particularly for pushing the ESG movement and trying to force companies to become, quote unquote, environmentally friendly and transition towards net zero carbon emissions, which is just objectively insane. And at the end of the day, big finance likes to make money, and that ESG push particularly didn't make them any money. They spun up a bunch of ESG funds and raised a bunch of capital, and it hasn't returned capital. And I think the combination of the failure of those strategies and a sway in public perception, I think the public more broadly is very tired of the browbeating, that they've taken in terms of virtue signaling, whether it's the environment, DEI initiatives. And I think people are fed up with it and don't really care about any of this, because what they really care about at the end of the day is their pocketbooks and their wallets, and inflation has had an insane effect on both of those things. And people really just want an economy that's thriving, prices to come down. And Wall Street recognizes that. They need consumers at the end of the day as customers. And if we keep going down the path that we are with insane spending and insane energy policy and insane border policy, that's going to be detrimental for the U.S. economy in the long term. And so I think what you're seeing, comments from Jamie Dimon, and I think more people are becoming emboldened to speak out against the insane economic policy of the incumbent administration, is a sort of reading of the tea leaves, particularly around public perception. People are saying, we're tired of this. We really don't care about all this at the end of the day. We just want to go to work, make a wage, be able to buy groceries, pay our rent, pay our mortgage bills, send our kids to school. And I think it's becoming pretty clear that we need a shift in economic policy. And Jamie Dimon, again, beginning to sort of ring the bell, say, hey, maybe we should go in this direction.
Marty, people know that you're a Bitcoin guy, and Trump went to the Bitcoin conference over the summer in Nashville, and he really riled up the crowd. So do you see the Bitcoin crowd becoming diehard Trump voters in November?
Yes, I think a lot of Bitcoiners are single issue voters, and Trump has put his support behind Bitcoin. Cynthia Lummis at that same conference announced the intent to pass a Bitcoin Act, which would make Bitcoin a strategic reserve asset within the Treasury. Trump, right after that speech, came and endorsed that act. And so I think for Bitcoiners, which Bitcoin is apolitical, it's a protocol, anybody, no matter what side of the aisle you are on, can leverage the properties of Bitcoin and benefit from the monetary asset and the network that is Bitcoin. However, there's only one side of the aisle that has signaled support for the industry. And as a fund manager at 1031, working with a bunch of companies in the space, there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty right now. And despite what you may think politically as an individual who likes Bitcoin, most people care about Bitcoin's long-term success at the end of the day and have become single issue voters. So I think this election within the world of Bitcoin will see a lot of individuals who historically voted Democrat down the ballot are going to support Donald Trump, because he has explicitly said that he wants to see America lead when it comes to Bitcoin. And that's really important, because I think what's even more important is that to recognize that we already have a lead in Bitcoin. I think the most Bitcoin per capita is held by American citizens. We have the most businesses related to Bitcoin started here in the United States, and we have a lead already. And the Biden administration, particularly with influence from Elizabeth Warren, has done everything they can over the last 4 years to stymie that lead, whether that's via things like Operation Choke Point 2.0, where they targeted banks that were servicing the industry, or Gary Gensler and the SEC really not giving the industry the clarity it needs. And so we're at a pretty big cross in the road here, where we have to decide, are we going to get that clarity and that support from the federal government to build out this industry, or are we going to get more of the same of an administration and a weaponized regulatory landscape that is really attacking the industry? And if we give up this lead, it will be at the extreme detriment of the United States in the long run. We have a massive opportunity to really own the Bitcoin and broader crypto industry here in the United States, but the last 4 years have really set it back and created an environment where people are seriously questioning, do I want to build my business here, or do I want to go elsewhere? El Salvador, Singapore, UAE. And if things go one way towards the Kamala Harris presidency, I think we could see a lot of people leave the Bitcoin industry in the United States, because I think people believe it will be more of the same of what we've seen over the last 4 years.
Marty Bent, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I mean the Bitcoin space, the Bitcoin vote. Who knew we were going to have a Bitcoin vote in the United States? But here we are.
No, it's truly remarkable, and I mean I think we'll see what the effect is. But the interesting thing is, you do have both big finance sort of saying, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that, and walking it back. And then, as he said, you have an exciting new movement that's really the future of financial freedom and independence, with everyone in Bitcoin having to become a fan of Donald Trump. So, I mean, it's really an existential election in so many ways. And what's getting lost sometimes in the shuffle is what Marty talks about all the time. You should follow Marty Bent if you don't.
Absolutely.
But this is a very serious election when it comes to Bitcoin and having an alternative to the overlords that be.